Hey guys, I've got a situation to give you today. There's somebody called Morgan, right? And Morgan wanted to get a fantastic online presence in her business. And what happened was Morgan had quite a few meetings with Taylor. Then what happened is Morgan and Taylor, they went into an agreement. Taylor was there at Digital Dynamics, entering into this agreement with Morgan, right? Now, under this agreement, what was going to happen was Taylor and her company Digital Dynamics was going to provide Morgan with top-notch marketing, social media, online content, amazing media marketing to make Morgan's business boom. Now, there was also a deal that Taylor and Taylor's company Digital Dynamics was going to give Morgan a whole heap of reports to show how things were going on. But the thing was, Morgan was unhappy because the SEO that Taylor was there to provide wasn't on par. The search engines, they were stagnant, and those monthly reports that were promised, well, they were often delayed, they lacked depth, they weren't the way they needed to be. Now, like I was saying, there was a service agreement in place. And the service agreement itself had an express term along the lines of all services will be delivered timely and efficiently with monthly reports detailing performance metrics and growth strategies, all delivered by a particular day of the month. Now what happened was Morgan was getting upset. Morgan was saying, I'm not seeing the expected growth in my business. Morgan was also saying that under the contract, you've got to do things on time. You've got to do them in the right ways. Taylor, on the other hand, Taylor was saying that, well, hang on a second, Morgan. We're performing on most fronts. And you know, Morgan, in this world of digital marketing, it's ever evolving. There's external factors like search engine algorithm changes or social media platform algorithms that get updated and change around. Taylor said, hey Morgan, don't you know these things could affect results? See, Taylor considered these implied terms as being within the services agreement, given the nature of the industry. Morgan, on the other hand, was saying, hang on, that's not right. And so the heat got turned up. Now, Morgan was feeling particularly frustrated. And Morgan said, look, I've got to take a more aggressive approach. And so what happened was they went along into mediation. And they got the mediator's guidance to deal with the service agreement, to deal with the whole situation. And Morgan was saying, look, what's happening is unfair and unreasonable. Morgan said, Taylor, it's your fault. And Morgan was blaming Taylor personally for these kinds of issues. Morgan started shouting. Morgan was really upset, right? Taylor, though, was taken aback by Morgan's aggressive approach. Taylor tried, she really did try to remain calm, and she tried to address the issues. But the thing was, Morgan was having none of it. The tension in the room was deafening. Taylor, reflecting on their previous encounters, acknowledged Morgan's anxiety and anger. Taylor knew that mediation was the only way of trying to deal with the situation. But also because of Taylor's business reputation, because Taylor actually wanted to try to do the best thing for everyone, they sought the help of the mediator. And so what happened at that point there was they engaged the mediator and they said, hey mediator, let's call the mediator Bob. They said, mediator Bob, we need you to help us with our dispute to do with the services agreement. Can you help us out here? Now, The thing is, a mediator's role is to be impartial. And so the anger and aggression that was displayed by Morgan was something that the mediator addressed at the beginning of a mediation. See, if you ever go to a mediation, there's a standard type scenario and presentation and speak really about laying down the ground rules that a mediator gives. A mediator sits down the ground rules by saying things like each party is going to have their opportunity to speak. Each party has to be respectful during the mediation process, and each party needs to speak best way possible by not letting them get the emotions out of hand, but instead keeping things in a way that's going to be best placed to achieve win-win kind of outcomes. And so what happened was, through the help of the mediator, they sought to avoid a potential legal battle. And then through this, what they did is they said, mediator, we're ready. It's time. We need your help now so we can try and set aside our emotions, but focus on the facts and the mutual interests in a place of integrity, but also in a place where they could look again at the service agreement, looking at the clauses, discussing the situations calmly and constructively, looking at the implied terms that Taylor was speaking about, but also enabling Morgan to express her concerns without necessarily resorting to blame, separating the people from the problem, meaning not personalising it, so that Taylor wouldn't personalise on Morgan and Morgan wouldn't personalise on Taylor. And through the mediation process, by the end of it, the mediator helped Taylor and Morgan set out a brand new service agreement, which was great, right? Some of the key things that went into the service agreement was about keeping clear communication, having more regular check-ins. I mean, those are the sorts of things that was keeping Morgan happy because she was then able to get the reporting she wanted. There was new trial periods set up to assess the effectiveness of these kinds of changes. And the good news is, upon reflection and at the end of the mediation, both Taylor and Morgan realised the importance of emotional intelligence in business dealings. That's right. There's a great book by Daniel Goleman called Emotional Intelligence. And check that one out, because if we can be aware, as Morgan and Taylor were, of their emotions and their emotional intelligence throughout the mediation process, then that can be a great tool, a great vehicle to be able to work through situations and look at dispute resolution processes. Now, if we call this situation with Morgan and Taylor the service agreement slip up, we can do this now. We can take away these key tips from the service agreement slip up. The key tips can be these. Number one, understanding emotions in negotiation. You see, when it comes down to negotiations, emotions are going to play a significant role. Emotions themselves, they can influence behaviour. Emotions themselves, they can influence perceptions and outcomes. And did you know that it's essential to differentiate feelings of emotion like anxiety and anger so they don't actually cause greater problems? And so, by avoiding anxiety in the negotiation context, it can really help you keep a lid on things, achieve better outcomes, because anxiety can be detrimental in negotiations. Anxiety itself, well, that can lead to hasty decision making. Anxiety can exacerbate problems. It can cause weaker offers, and overall, it can actually bring about poor outcomes. Now, anxiety is, the world that we live in these days, unfortunately, way too many people have a lot more anxiety than, what we're comfortable with. And there's way too much anxiety, in my view, in society than what there should be. There's a positive in this. The positive is, if we can look at negotiations being done better without anxiety, well, then we can use negotiations to be detached from anxiety, because if we can use negotiations as a place to be free from anxiety, then that might help us have a better balanced approach in the negotiation that we can then bring outside of the negotiation as well. Anyway, negotiations are done better as well if we can manage anger. See, don't let the anger get the better hand of you. You can imagine this, right? You can imagine driving your car, for example, when somebody cuts you off, and they might even put their rude finger up at you. How angry you get. But the thing is, if you look at the interests of yourself and the interests of the other party, nobody's going to be served from a place of anger. Stay calm. Take a breath. Stay silent for a moment if you need to. But look for ways to create positive outcomes. Don't let yourself get caught up by anger, but instead look to be kind to yourself. And if you can be kind to yourself, it's going to put you in a better place to serve others as well. Another great lesson is observing counterparts' emotions. That's right. Pay attention to the other person's body language. How are they speaking? What is their tone of voice? What is their choice of words? See, when the other person is disconnecting between their verbal and non-verbal cues, it can give you a chance to observe. And also, don't shy away from influencing the other person and their emotions to be in the place you want them to be to achieve win-win outcomes. And this doesn't mean manipulating them. It doesn't mean doing anything that's underhanded. But what it does mean is use it to steer the negotiation into a positive direction. For example, use humour. If the negotiation is tense, humour can be a fantastic way to lighten things. It can even build empathy and trust. Well-placed humour is brilliant. Another lesson is the power of a mediator. That's right. If you can get an external expert like a mediator involved in your dispute, their experience and their objectivity and their role can lead to a way better and more favourable win-win style outcome. A mediator can give you a smoother negotiation process because a mediator is almost like a third-party expert negotiator brought in, particularly when emotions are high. Because the mediator themselves, they bring a level of detachment. And remember, a mediator is a professional. So their professionalism is brought to the table. Another lesson is continuously learning. Don't think that you know everything. Nobody really does. We all need to continuously learn, continuously adapt, and negotiation is no different. Negotiation is a skill, right? It can be honed over time. And continuously learning, practicing, and being exposed to different kinds of negotiation scenarios, that can make you a better negotiator. It can build confidence. It can reduce negative emotional responses, and the experience that you have as a negotiator gets better with time, practice, and experience. And so when you've had one negotiation, you can actually use it to reflect and learn lessons to make you better as a negotiator the next time. So in this whole case scenario, what we're going to do is look at this, right? We're going to also understand this lesson right here. We're going to also look at the fact that, going back to the point before, anger damages long-term relationships. See, it's essential to understand this, but also this leads to the next point, which is the risk of feigning emotions. See, not being angry doesn't mean you pretend to be something that you're not. Don't think that by faking an emotion it's going to lead to a better outcome. I mean, faking something can actually damage long-term relationships. This is a fine line though, right? Because if you fake something, it can definitely reduce trust and mutual respect. But on the other hand, there is a saying that says, fake it until you make it. I personally believe that both these sides, not faking an emotion, but also fake it till you make it, can both be useful in the right time. It's like a fine thread where experience is going to help you to know where to stand. But bottom line on that is be authentic, be real, be your true self, but bring your positive best self to the table. Now, the thing is as well that a future negotiation is going to be a lot more challenging and potentially devastating against your interests if you don't have that authenticity and trust there. So that's why I'm saying, guys, keep authentic, be trustworthy, and look for win-win outcomes. Now, understanding the context of the negotiation. See, the way that you express yourself in a negotiation does depend on the context. See, in situations where a long-term relationship's essential, in that situation there, you've got to understand the context of the negotiation. Don't show up in one spirit or say something or do something or act in a particular way in a negotiation if it's not your authentic self, because displaying yourself in a certain way is going to be more effective when it's truly you. And so, as a negotiator, you really do need to be aware of the potential costs and the repercussions that are involved. So authenticity really is a key. The next lesson is the emotional preparation. Emotional preparation, which is a great key. See, if you're going to go into a negotiation and you understand the logistical, the objective, the factual matters, great. You also got to understand your emotional strategy. Because if you can anticipate the potential emotional triggers, and if you can get yourself in the best place before a negotiation takes place, when you step inside, you're going to be well-powered, well in tune to be in the best and strongest place to negotiate for yourself. This brings into play something else that I've spoken about, which is the inner game of negotiation. Another lesson is strategize, don't react. Hang on a second, what does that mean? How can we strategize if we don't react? Well, this is all about deciding in advance exactly which emotions will be beneficial to display and which emotions might hinder the process. So if you can be strategic and you know where you're going to be coming from before it begins, begin with the end in mind, it's going to help you to avoid reacting, but instead you'll be strategic and better placed to achieve the negotiation outcomes. Put yourself in the place where you can achieve the right negotiation goals rather than derailing them. Guys, if you can take some of these lessons that I've shared into your next negotiation, be in that best emotional state, not being angry, but instead being your authentic self. These are the kinds of things that are going to strategically place you in the best possible position to achieve win-win outcomes and hopefully also preserve the relationship with the other parties at the same time. And one of the things that I love a lot about legal style negotiations, particularly in the mediation context, is the flame is turned up, emotions are high, the heat is on. There's often a lot more pressure in those sort of environments. Embrace them. If you ever get to a tricky negotiation, embrace that opportunity, because when you can deal with the tricky situations, the more straightforward ones become a bit easier to handle. Now, the other thing that you should understand is the emotional place that you're in, because sometimes emotions can be really powerful. I mean, while you don't really want to be feeling anxious, if you are feeling anxious, that might be okay, it might be how you are. What you can do is try and take steps to anticipate the emotions before they arise. So what you can do is, with a level of self-awareness, you might know the kinds of things and kinds of situations that might make you feel anxious, but on the other hand, you might know the kinds of things that you can be involved in to help you deal emotionally with challenging situations. So for example, maybe going for a run an hour before the negotiation could be a helpful way of dealing with the emotions. Bottom line is, when it comes to the main event, having navigated with your emotions before the negotiation begins can put you in a better place to deal with your emotions when the negotiation is on foot. Now think about it. What words, what actions, what kinds of things might make you angry or anxious? Also, what kinds of things might provoke feelings of happiness, confidence, peace in you and in the other party? Sometimes if you can bring out the positive emotions, then the negative emotions are held at bay, right? Think of it this way. Imagine you're walking into a dark room. It's dark, you can't see anything, right? But as soon as you reach for that light switch and turn the light on, that light shines bright, the darkness fades away, and now you can see. And sometimes it can be just like that when it comes to emotions. If you can go into a situation turning on those bright, positive emotions, these darker emotions like anxiety might just fall away. Which style, which way of holding those emotions, those negative ones like anxiety, at bay is best for you? This is where the place of self-awareness comes into it. Something I personally love to do at the end of every negotiation is to reflect. I love to reflect on my own emotions. I also love to reflect on the style and strategies and tactics used in the negotiation. But if you can understand your aspirations, if you can understand your expectations, if you can reflect at the end of a negotiation and consistently look to get better and better in your own negotiations, you are naturally going to improve and become the best version of a negotiator you can possibly be. When you look at outcomes of a negotiation, you can look at a couple of things. That negotiation itself and what you wanted to achieve. But the other piece is, did you improve? Have you learned? Because that way you can create inherent value in yourself as a negotiator by looking at the overarching principle coming out of every negotiation is learning to become the best version of yourself. Also, if you can empower the other party through the negotiation outcome through favourable win-win type scenarios, great. By adopting these kinds of approaches that I've shared, I really look forward to seeing you not only effectively managing your emotions, that's going to bring you into being the most successful negotiator you can possibly be, but I'm also looking forward to hearing more and seeing your own discovery of yourself as you manage anger, you build rapport, and you become the very best negotiator